What's going on, YouTube? RDAP Dan here, Federal Prison Time Consulting. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. It's Tuesday, which feels like a Monday to most of us because of the holiday. Hope you guys all had an awesome, what was it, Labor Day yesterday, right? Hope you guys did something amazing and nice with your families on Labor Day. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Michael Cohen and what type of sentence he may be looking at going to federal prison. Women's prison talk. Women's prison talk. Interesting. How you doing, women's prison talk? I would love to know more about what it is. Do you have a YouTube channel? If you do, send us a link. I'd love to hear some more information and maybe even talk to you about how we can have you come on the show. So I want to say a big thanks to all of the recent subscribers in the last, I don't know what's happened, but in the last 48 hours, we've had a couple of hundred new subscribers to the channel. So it seems like the channel's finally grabbed some momentum. So I want to say thank you to all of you that have subscribed and have been with us since the beginning in 2015. Also want to make sure if you do have a loved one in prison or going to prison and you want to save money on your inmate phone calls, sending pictures, sending postcards, make sure you reach out to Pigeonly. CJ is actually posting that in the chat right now. There's also a link in the description of this video to how you can save a ton of money on inmate phone calls, sending your inmate pictures, postcards, without actually ever leaving your house. You can do this all from your computer, which is definitely saving some money and time. Michael Cohen. The reason why we decided to do this story on Michael Cohen today, not only is it a hot topic, everybody's talking about it, why not do a story on it, but more importantly, I think a lot of people have the misconception of a white-collar criminal somehow gets off easier, is looking at less time, can buy their way out of issues, and most of the time that is not the case. Not going to say sometimes behind closed doors certain strings are pulled to help people avoid prison time. You got to remember, Michael Cohen does not have a minimum mandatory with the plea agreement that he has accepted. So we're going to go through how this works a little bit. And I want to show you guys the actual plea. CJ, in the description of this video, there's a link to where people can actually get the plea. Feel free to grab that link and share it in the video. So let's go ahead and take it. Let's pop over there real quick. So we're going to go to here we go. All right, so as you guys see, we've got the plea agreement here. This is the actual plea that Michael Cohen has accepted. So he's accepted, he's taken a plea to information, which meaning prior to being indicted, he's agreed to take a plea prior to being indicted, which a lot of people, whether you're a rich white-collar criminal or you're a first-time nonviolent offender, a lot of the times they will offer you a plea without actually being indicted to save yourself time, money, resource, getting locked up right away. So the plea that he agreed to is 8 counts. We've got 5 counts of evasion of personal income tax for years 2012, 2013, 2015, and 2016. He could serve up to 5 years based on that crime. On count 6, so that was counts 1 through 5. So on count number 6, making false statements to financial institutions, he could receive a max up to 30 years for that count. Count 7, unlawful corporate contribution, max up to 5 years. And if you have questions or information about this, feel free to go do your research on what these counts represent. Count 8, excessive campaign contribution, max of 5 years. This was basically the count for the hush money that was given to Stormy Daniels in the excess of $130,000 to basically keep quiet about her relationship with Donald Trump. Now, what makes all of this really interesting, and here we can kind of go through, this is the plea agreement here, if you're able to see that. Basically, the first page just goes through the different counts 1 through 5 of information, charge the defendant with evasion of personal tax for calendar that shows the years. Then if you scroll down to the next paragraph, count 6 of the information charge, making false statements to a financial institution in connection with a credit decision. That was around February 2015 to looks like April 2016. That carries a max of imprisonment up to 30 years, and we're going to talk about that 30 years in a minute and what that means. Count 7 of the information charge the defendant with willfully causing an unlawful corporate contribution from at least in or about June 2016. So this was the money that was given to Stormy Daniels to keep quiet, which clearly she did not do. So what does that mean? All of these different charges. So first, they're not going to charge him they're not going to give him 5 years for each count and run it. They're going to run it all together. They're going to put it consecutively to where he can, or concurrently to where he can serve this time. All of the counts will get basically wrapped into one sentence. So he's not going to be 5 years and then another 5 years and then another 5 years. That's part of the plea agreement. If we come down to page 4, let's go down to page 4. This will give you a little clearer picture. And this is a very standard plea agreement. There's nothing special about this plea agreement. Just because of who he is and the amount of money that he has, everybody would think that he's got some kind of amazing plea deal, and that's just not the situation. This is a very standard plea, and for those of you that might be looking at going into federal prison, maybe you've already received your plea. If you look through your plea versus this plea, there's nothing special in this plea. So on page 4, it shows us what his offense level would be. So if you scroll down kind of here where it says, in accordance with above applicable guidelines, offense level is 24 under the government's calculation and 23 under the defendant's calculation. So the government and the defendant are in disagreement what the actual offense level should be. So somewhere between 23 and 24. If you look under column B there, criminal history category, he has what's called a category history 1, which means he has no criminal category, he has no criminal history. This is his first time in any type of trouble. So with that information, we know that worst case scenario, he's going to be a level 24 on the base offense level and a criminal category history 1, which is as low as you can possibly go. So what does that mean? So let's take a look. Let's go back over here and let's look at the sentencing guideline table. So if you look at this table, you'll see at the top, you'll see where it says offense level, and then it goes down from 1 to 43 on the offense level. And then just to the right of that, you'll see criminal history category, which you'll see the first one is a 1. So criminal or offense level, we said 24. If you scroll down to a 24, you'll see that under offense level 24 and under criminal category history 1, that brings him to 51 to 63 months. Now he's saying he's at level 23 based on the defense. So if that were the case, he'd be looking at 46 to 57 months. Now he may qualify for what's called a 5K1 for cooperating above and beyond. And if he does qualify for a 5K1, which I assume he would, he can probably be eligible for another 3-point reduction for a 5K1. So let's say he was a level 23 at the end of the day, and then he gets 3 points from there. So that'd bring you to 22, 21, 20. So at a level 20, that would bring him to 33 to 41 months is the amount of time he'd be looking at in federal prison. Now, when it said on that one charge where it said it could carry a max of 30 years, that was making false statements to a financial institution. Max of 30 years, that just means that's the most amount of time he could get for that. However, his criminal category and his base offense level do not recommend that he receives that much time. These are recommended guidelines. The judge could go above or below these guidelines. But based on the guidelines, based on the fact that he's cooperating, based on the fact that he's taking a plea to information without being indicted, chances are they would not go outside of these guidelines. And if you read through the information that's linked in here where you can actually go read the plea agreement, which is right back over here, this plea agreement, if you read through it, it states that neither the prosecutor nor the defense is going to ask for a variance on the guidelines of upward or downward, meaning they're going to recommend a prison sentence within the guideline range. And I would imagine that he would more than likely receive a sentence based on the lower end of the guideline for cooperating, not because he's a white-collar criminal or because he has money. That's just everybody that we see, all of our clients that we help, that's typically what happens. Is worst case scenario, if you're cooperating, you're usually sentenced at the low end of the guidelines. Now, we have several clients that were sentenced way below the guidelines, even to probation. So a lot of what you do with your time preparing to go to prison, and what Michael Cohen is doing right now, could have a huge impact the day of sentencing. Something tells me he's not putting a whole lot of effort into personal narratives. Something tells me he's not trying to prepare to take possible classes like the residential drug abuse program. We see a lot of white-collar criminals improperly educated to what they should expect going into prison. They just think the more money they throw at their attorneys, the better the outcome is. So just like you all and a lot of you guys that are watching this would think the more money these white-collar guys have, the lighter the sentences are going to be. Well, the white-collar criminal also thinks that. They think the more money they're going to throw at this, the better their outcome is going to be. And if they just learned early on that it doesn't work that way, and the only way you're going to get a reduced sentence is by putting in that time and effort. Now, what's really interesting in this whole thing is we know Michael Cohen is basically including Donald Trump as a conspirator. He's saying Donald Trump has more than enough information in what happened to indict him. However, there's a law basically in place right now that you cannot indict an active president. So that kind of gets Donald Trump out of being indicted. But I'm very curious to see if at the very least this causes him to step down, and then maybe an indictment comes after him later on. But there's a lot of people right now that are outing what's going on. And Donald Trump actually made a statement on an interview that he believes flipping should be illegal. And he's never commented on this before. He's never once said that people should not be. Basically, he's saying ratting should be illegal. He's saying that you should not be able to flip on somebody to get a reduced sentence. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that statement. However, his timing is really, really poor, being he's in the hot seat, and right now a lot of people are flipping on him. So, of course, he's going to throw that, we'll call it the Trump card. He's going to throw that Trump card out, hoping that people will pay attention to that. And really, I think it makes him look really, really bad, because he's basically stating that flipping now should be illegal, and it's because he's in the hot seat. Let's listen to that video. It's right here. It's about under 2 minutes. Here we go.
And Michael Cohen had, I guess, a taxi business, and somebody reported him for some things in his taxi business, and that's how this started. And they put the 2 counts of campaign violations in there, but a lot of lawyers on television, and also lawyers that I have, say that they're not even crimes.
If you're saying the payments, if they're not illegal, then why would he use that information for a plea deal?
Because he makes a better deal when he uses me, like everybody else. And one of the reasons I respect Paul Manafort so much is he went through that trial. You know, they make up stories. People make up stories. This whole thing about flipping, they call it. I know all about flipping. For 30, 40 years, I've been watching flippers. Everything's wonderful, and then they get 10 years in jail, and they flip on whoever the next highest one is, or as high as you can go. It almost ought to be outlawed. It's not fair, because if somebody's going to spend 5 years like Michael Cohen, or 10 years or 15 years in jail because of a taxi cab industry, because he defrauded some bank, the last 2 were the tiny ones. You know, campaign violations are considered not a big deal, frankly. But if somebody defrauded a bank and he's going to get 10 years in jail or 20 years in jail, but if you can say something bad about Donald Trump and you'll go down to 2 years or 3 years, which is the deal he made, in all fairness to him, most people are going to do that. And I've seen it many times. I've had many friends involved in this stuff. It's called flipping, and it almost ought to be illegal. You get 10 years in jail, but if you say bad things about somebody, in other words, make up stories, if you don't know, make up stories, they just make up lies. Alan Dershowitz said, compose, right? They make up lies. I've seen it many times. They make up things, and now they go from 10 years to they're a national hero.
All right, so there you go. There you kind of hear it out of Donald Trump's mouth that he feels flipping should be against the law. And, you know, a lot of people would agree with that. A lot of people would disagree with that. But however, most of the people that end up going to prison at some point are either cooperating or they're being cooperated against. It's been the way it's been for God knows how long. It's how prosecutors build their case. It's how people that are facing, as he said in there, facing 10 or 20 years, if they can give information on somebody else, they get a lesser sentence for, in their mind at the time, doing the right thing. Or just trying to save their own ass, whatever you might want to call it. But the fact that Donald Trump is trying to state that it should be illegal now, I don't know if I buy his reasoning for it other than he doesn't want it to apply to him. I would imagine Donald Trump is used to kind of getting his way, being powerful, making his own rules. And in this situation, there's a lot of people. If you look at, what's his name, Pecker, the gentleman that owns Inquirer, I think it's Inquirer, smut magazine basically, they're very pro-Trump, and there's a lot of information coming out right now where he may also be testifying and giving information regarding to Trump's knowing of what was going on during the potential criminal activity. So it's going to be very interesting to watch this unfold, to say the least. But there's a giant misconception that white-collar criminals are treated differently than average criminals. And we got to remember, most white-collar criminals do not have a criminal history, at least not documented. They're being sentenced based on a guideline range. The majority of them are nonviolent, so there's no need to put them in a max security prison unless the amount of time they're sentenced to requires it, meaning you're not going to go to a prison camp if you're sentenced to more than 10 years. You'll go to a low security if you're sentenced to be between 10 and 20 years. You can land yourself in a low security. But if you're sentenced to above 20 years, you won't go to a low. You'll then go to a medium or a penitentiary. So white-collar criminals still can go to very, very intense, scary prisons. It's just based on what type of time they're looking at. If you've got somebody serving life in prison or 20, 30, 40 years in prison for murder, gang violence, rape, whatever it may be, you're not going to put that person in prison with somebody looking at 3 to 5 years. That person that's being sentenced to a potential life sentence has nothing to lose, and the person that's only serving 3 to 5 years, in my opinion, should not be in the same category as somebody going to prison for a lengthy time for a violent crime. So that is the huge difference between why you see white-collar criminals getting shorter sentences. Typically, their crime and their past criminal history does not warrant a lengthy sentence. It's not because they're a white-collar criminal. My crime was not considered white-collar, and I was sentenced to 42 months. I was sent to a low-security prison. I ended up serving 13 months out of my 42 months, thanks to Good Time, the residential drug abuse program, which I was able to knock a year off of my sentence, and then being able to qualify for 11 months of Second Chance Act through the halfway house. So I did 11 months in the halfway house versus the last 11 months in prison. So there are ways to shave off time off of a sentence. You just have to know how to navigate through the system, and whether you're making minimum wage, $10 an hour, first-time nonviolent criminal offender, or a high-end white-collar criminal that's got tons and tons of money, what you're going through right now is very, very real. We're actually doing a documentary with a current client of ours that lives local, a white-collar criminal who's involved in a giant, close to 30 people in a conspiracy that is allowing me to document and journal their entire life right now. And this is pre-indictment. They have not been indicted yet. They're just under investigation. They know an indictment is coming. They know that a very likely prison sentence is coming. So they're allowing me to document this on where they live, the things they own, how they're about to lose their home. They're going to lose everything they know. Both of them are probably going to go to prison for their role in this conspiracy. And they really understand the need to get this type of information out for people to be able to recognize and familiarize themselves with they're not the only ones going through this. So that will be a really interesting video to bring you guys in the future. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so now. All you need to do is tap the subscribe button up in the top hand right. Also, tap on the bell, which will put you on our notification list. So when we do go live and we do release videos, you get an email of it. And the last thing you can do is if you text the word YouTube to 76626. It's here on the screen up in your top right, right underneath my phone number. Text the word YouTube to 76626. That will put you on our text message notification list to make sure you also receive a text message to your cell phone with a link to all of our live videos or pre-recorded videos. Again, I want to thank all of you that have subscribed over the last 48 hours. We've seen a giant spike in traffic on our channel. And that's what we need, because it's people helping people. Community's method, one day at a time, is the only way we're going to get this information out there. People that are going to prison, I understand if you're not going through the system and you hear about nonviolent first-time offenders, white-collar criminals, whatever, going into the system, you hear about these sentences they receive of 24 months or 36 months, and they're going to some cushy prison. That may be the end result, but I can promise you, as somebody that went through the prison system for the first time, I've never been to prison before. First time nonviolent offender. I was terrified from the moment I got in trouble in 2011 until I self-surrendered to my prison sentence in 2014. From 2011 to 2014, that's the true prison sentence. All of these people that are getting ready to go to prison for potentially a short sentence, what they're going to find out is prison is not the hard part. The pre-trial, going through it, not knowing how much time you're going to get, how do you explain things to your family, what can you do to possibly mitigate your sentence beyond throwing money at a problem. This is what we help people with. This is the coaching with Jenny, helping you with your personal narratives, your character reference letters, making sure you understand what needs to go into your PSR, making sure you can qualify for programs like RDAP to reduce your sentence by up to a year, making sure we can help you position yourself to get into the Second Chance Act, to also qualify for up to a year of halfway house versus your last year in prison, helping you early terminate off of supervised release once you're finished with your prison sentence. We now have a new service available where we've already helped quite a few people early terminate their supervised release to basically get them free and clear of all outstanding obligations to the federal government aside from any restitution you may owe. So if you're lost and you're confused and you're just not getting the information from your attorney other than the plea you're working on, that's really what you see most attorneys focus on. If you want help navigating the rest of the way and what you can do to put yourself in the best possible situation to serve the least amount of time in the best possible location, I encourage you right now to call the phone number on your screen, 509-434-4695. Visit us on the web at rdapdan.com. That's www.rdapdan.com. And text YouTube to 76626. I love every single one of you. I will be back probably on Wednesday or Thursday, and we're going to talk a little bit more about RDAP, getting ready to go into phase 2. All right, guys, have an awesome day. I love every single one of you. Talk to you soon. Peace.